Was priced office furniture. Direct.
Dobar dan. That means good day. Talkcast PDX on the web at talkcastpdx.com. It's Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. The name of the show is the Bogdanich Perspective. I'm your host, Paul Bogdanich. Welcome. Episode 57 today, and I'm going to call it Usurp. USURP. Means to... Well, usurper is the most famous derivative of the word. Somebody who comes to power illegally or through violence. But usurp, to take something, I guess, would be a good way to say it. We have these every day of the year, is always some kind of day. Mother's Day, Father's Day, Children's Day. And April 19th, today, is Congenital Diaphragmatic Hernia Action Day is today, and it's also Garlic Day. So take your pick. If you eat enough garlic, maybe you can get a diaphragmatic hernia and celebrate both days at once. I'm a member of Talkcast PDX, and they have lifestyle shows and cooking shows. What's the new show that's doing today after this one?
It's Portland Interview Magazine.
Okay.
It's not new. It's just been on hiatus. It's coming back today.
Okay, so we have Portland Interview today after my show. But we broadcast over YouTube and so censored, by the YouTube guidelines, which is owned by Google. Have a sponsor, though. PDX, Talkcast PDX picked up a sponsor. Office Furniture Direct is a big office furniture dealer here in Portland. Panel dividers, workstations, cubicles, desks, chairs, tables, anything that you need. They recommend that you go to their website, which is OFD, so Office Furniture Direct, OFDPDX.com, browse their catalog, make an appointment, go in and buy your office furniture. And it's a pretty good place, low prices, used and new. So that's helpful. As I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, the only thing that the governments of the West do well anymore is propaganda. We talked about that, the Putin price hike and all that stuff. And, they always come up with names and jingoistic slogans and stuff, and they're good at propaganda. The whole Ukraine war thing is propaganda. There's a big advertising campaign, and it's showing up in Germany in German language, and in Italy Italian language, and in Times Square, in English language, and in, I can't remember, Red Lion Street in London, English language. And, something centrally coordinated like that is funded by the Biden administration. The script is probably written by the CIA, but it's promulgated worldwide to drive home an advertising point. But we do that well, but nothing else. We're going to start with some fun stuff. If you could put up graph number 1, please. Always try and find something interesting that's not connected to all this other nonsense. And here we have it. A Japanese man. His name is Ryuichi Sasaki, I think. All right, Rokisasaki. He's 20 years old, right? All right, he's in Japan's major leagues. He threw a perfect game, first perfect game in 28 years on April 6th, I guess. He struck out 19 batters, 13 in a row. All right, tying the Japanese record. A week later, on Sunday, April 10th, he threw 8 more perfect innings to strike out 14 batters before the coach pulled him to preserve his arm. All right, so he now has 17 consecutive perfect innings, and he's retired 52 straight batters, which is a huge, an all-time record in the Japanese major leagues. I would expect that we'll be seeing him in the majors before too long. He's only 20. But anyway, that's cool. Somebody with a good arm. You can take that one down. Hard news on Tuesday of last week, which is when I spoke, but I didn't have a chance to get to it. The consumer price inflation number came out. You can take that. Oh, yeah, that graph is down and put up number 2. But the consumer price index came out on Tuesday of last week, which is when I spoke last, and then the producer price index came out on Wednesday, which is the day after I spoke. And I like to look at them together because producer price indexes lead consumer price index. What you see in the producer price index shows up in the consumer price index in between 30 and 60 days delayed, depending on the item. But here's your numbers. The headline numbers: the CPI for March, was 1.2%. I should have changed February to March. That should read March on that graph. I made an error. But anyway, they're for March, and 1.2% on the CPI, and that made headlines in the news and everything else. And then the PPI came out the day after on Wednesday, and it's even larger at 1.4%. And then I listed our categories there. I added butter and oils to the right-hand side because that's turning into a problem. Margarine, cooking oil, butter, things like that. You can see the gains, 5.6% and 6%. The red numbers there are decreases in prices. But, big move in fresh fruits and vegetables, huh? Look at that. 42.4% on the producer price index. Cereals and bakery products, 16.1%. So grains and bread and fresh fruits and vegetables are going to get expensive in a little while. Eggs, we had that problem with the bird flu and all that, so those prices dropped. Beef and veal, as you have to cull the herds, dropped a little bit and so on, but not good numbers. If you could take down number 2 and put up number 3, if you'd be so kind. And these are 2 graphs out of one's out of the Consumer Price Index report, and the other is out of the Producer Price Index report. And so they're put together by the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics. But there's your inflation numbers in time series. Okay, the top one is the CPI. Okay, and this is just a year series, so it goes back to March of 2021. And the blue line is all items, and then the red line is all items less food and energy. And see the little vertical line over there to the right-hand side? That is when Russia invaded Ukraine. Right, that's where Russia invaded Ukraine. Now, do you see the inflation before that? So I mean, Putin price hike, huh? The bottom one is the producer price index, same time series. And as you can see, producer prices are a little more stable, but the final demand line, and make sure and look at the scales on the, what would it be? This side over here. Where's my, I don't know. Anyway, it's over here. I don't know. I'm trying to reach. But anyway, on the right-hand side, yeah, there it is. Okay, now, but 8% going up to 12% on consumer price, or on producer prices for final demand goods, and now it's up to 16%. Even the red line, which is final demand services, is 8% a year. Call it doubling from 4% a year, and these numbers are huge. Again, the vertical line is when Russia invaded Ukraine, but they're calling it the Putin price hike. If you can take that one down. In other news on that subject, inflation, Amazon, for all your delivered goods, implemented a 5% fee on top of the fulfillment fee for their vendors. So in other words, the vendors pay a fulfillment charge and a shipping charge, and the prices on both the fulfillment and the shipping were increased 5% to the vendors. So all prices on Amazon have to go up 1 or 2%, but Amazon is not doing it. They're disguising it through the vendors by putting this 5% tax on the vendors. But they say that what do they say? Since 2002, and inclusive of this charge, Amazon has increased fulfillment rates less than other carriers and continues to cost significantly less than alternatives, is what they say. But basically, they had to establish a 5% surcharge. EU demand country, the EU, Brussels, the European Union, demand that all countries embargo Russian energy. The experts say that the results will be catastrophic. Their own experts, but they don't care. They're still demanding. Germany, if they do that, anticipates the collapse of entire industries. The head of the Austrian energy giant, OMV, which basically supplies all the energy to the country, said it's impossible, quote, impossible for Austria to quit buying Russian gas. Hungary, Slovakia, and a few other countries just plan to ignore the demand from the EU in the interest of, quote, self-preservation. U.S. natural gas prices reached their highest level in 13 years. $7.57 per British thermal, or for 1,000 British thermal units, which is a lot. Last time I did a gas deal, prices were $2, $2.50, and now it's $7.50. The reason that American gas prices are up so much is because we're shipping all our liquefied natural gas to Europe. So it's driving up our prices, policy decisions, in other words. And then the federal action on the drilling leases and the pipelines are constricting supply. So it's a man-made crisis. Putin has nothing to do with it. It's, Biden administration policies, but they don't want to say that. Bank of America does an optimism survey of investment bankers. It's worldwide. They do Asia, they do Europe, and the United States. And they released their annual report, last Tuesday. And it said a net 71% of money managers are pessimistic about global growth prospects. And that's the most since the survey started in the early 1990s. The condition of European managers found that 81% of respondents expected the region's economy to contract in the coming year, and that's compared to only 69% that said that the month prior. So those are your money managers, and they expect weakness, so I don't know what to tell you. Interesting little things. That producer price index and all that inflation news. Remember, the only thing we do well is propaganda. This is a page from the Wall Street Journal for the day of Thursday, April 14th, which is the day after the producer price index thing came out. Here's a page. You can see it. U.S. aims to ease student debt rules up on top. Lots of words. Holiday air travel has delays. Big article. Continued from the first page. Transportation mask mandate is extended, and it was overturned by a judge yesterday. Very interesting. As soon as she overturned the mask mandate, Delta and American and a couple other airlines radioed the pilots in the air. Didn't even wait for the following day to say, hey, masks are optional. They radioed the pilots in the air and told them to ditch the masks. Anyway, down here you have this little section, so less than half the page. It's called U.S. Watch. This is an ad for Boys and Girls Clubs of America, so significantly larger. And there's 3 articles in here, see, in this little section right down here. And we have wildfire burns homes, prompts evacuations, Walter backs raising rates by a half point. Walters is a Fed governor, and a picture of a home with the side blown off by a tornado up in Minnesota. And this little article right here. March producer prices increase sharply. Okay. Suppliers raised prices sharply last month, a sign inflation continues to percolate through the U.S. economy. The Labor Department on Wednesday said the producer price index, which generally reflects supply conditions in the economy, increased a seasonally adjusted 1.4% in March from the prior month, a pickup of an upwardly revised 0.09% gain in February. Producer prices rose 11.2% on a 12-month basis, compared with an upwardly revised 10.3% increase in February. That marked the fourth consecutive month of double-digit gains. And that, ladies and gentlemen, in the Wall Street Journal, was the entire extent of the coverage of the producer price index. That's censorship by omission, is what that is, and it's the only thing we do well, though, propaganda. When you ask people what they think about, like the Biden administration, I saw an interesting poll. It was very informal, taken on Twitter, but a poll taken, it was restricted to men. And it turns out that having your wife or your girlfriend wanting you to really open up and share your feelings has a higher approval rating than Joe Biden. So that was, I found that interesting. Pentagon officials say Ukraine is using up a week's worth of anti-tank munitions every day, and that the U.S. is now giving Kiev about a third of its entire stockpile of these anti-tank weapons. And that's interesting. It's Ukraine. It's the most corrupt country in the world, or one of them. Anyway, so what are the channels of quote unquote use? Ukraine is using them up. I would proffer that includes theft for sale on the black market, destruction by Russian forces, and then use against Russian forces. And how you apportion the stuff we send to those three categories, who knows? You would have to investigate it to find out. We never will. We just keep sending the gear. But who's bleeding who here? Our strategy is to fight this out to the last Ukrainian and bleed Russia and cause regime change and all the rest of this stuff. And who's bleeding who is my question. Anyway, London School of Economics did a psychological study on their students, 447 students from 59 different countries, and they concluded that people are more likely to believe a blatant lie if they think that it's going to come true in the future. If you say something that is blatantly false, but the person thinks that, that's probably going to happen eventually, then they're more likely to believe it. And that's one of the psychological elements of good propaganda. Cabrera Psychology did a study. Participants found it easy, effortless, to identify the biggest asshole they ever met. They generally considered the individual involved to be well described by the comment. The people in question were overwhelmingly male, 79.4%, average age of 42.7 years old. Approximately one-third, 35.3%, were identified as romantic partners, co-workers, bosses, family workers, or friends, while a full half had formerly held such positions. The traits that got them the appellation in question were arrogance, bigotry, blames others for everything that goes wrong, callousness, combativeness, domineering, immature, inconsiderate, irresponsible, and rude is what the criteria are. Notre Dame burned in 2019, and they're doing the reconstruction, and they got down about 60 feet below the foundation. 65 feet. And they found a series of unknown tombs. And down in there's a human-shaped sarcophagus made of lead that was put into a neatly cut depression into the rock and sealed. And they want to open it. And a lot of people are saying, don't Don't do that. One commenter in France said, in French, but the translation, as near as I have it, goes, "Repeat after me. Do not open suspicious lead-lined sarcophagi beckoning us with their mystery. I can't stress enough how every horror ever written has explicitly warned us about this." So, but they'll open it, of course, and we'll see. I read a lot of history, particularly the ancients. Call it the year 1000 back. And I can't help but when I read these things, like comparing it to the current situation. And in Republican Rome, or the Holy Roman Empire, or the Frankish kingdom, Charlemagne, or if you have in the old days, if you had an emperor that was this weak, as our current political system is, all the powers and courtiers, old, feeble, suffering dementia, shakes hands with his imaginary friends, has to be told which way to walk. And, Dianne Feinstein fits the bill. Nancy Pelosi fits the bill. Chuck Grassley is up for re-election. It will be his, whatever it is, I can't remember. But if he wins re-election, he will have served 48 years in the United States Senate consecutively. 48 years, 50 years. And Feinstein and all these other guys, Schumer, all the rest of these people are about the same. And then we wonder why we have problems. But every time in history that you had a situation that was this weak, you always got Diocletian, Severus, Vespasian, Caesar himself, somebody, something, thinking that these guys are a pushover. This is ridiculous. And they usurp the power of the throne, even the ones that were unsuccessful. Julianus, Didius Julianus, or Otho, or Vitellius, or any of those guys. Even the ones that were unsuccessful. Somebody always tries. And not so much in the United States, but you have the same situations in Australia and Canada and Italy and Spain and France and Britain and everywhere. Boris Johnson's government, Pierre Trudeau's government, Joe Biden's government. What a fucking laugh. Excuse my language. There's no usurpers. It's very, from a historical context, there's no Charles I. There's no Charlemagne. There's no Pope Leo. They're not there. And I just, I kind of don't get it. I'm waiting, so I don't know, but it's very, read in a very broad historical context. These are very confusing times. Speaking of confusing, Elon Musk launched a bid for Twitter, and he bought 9.2% of the stock. And the board invoked what they call a poison pill, and I was asked by Donald to kind of explain what that is. First off, what is it? Rule 411, I think. No, I can't remember. Anyway, there's a rule: if you own more than 5% of the stock, you have to disclose your holdings. If you own up to 10% of the stock, you have to start filing on what's called SG13 and declare your intentions as a group, which is why he only bought 9.2% of the stock instead of the 10 to stay below the reporting threshold and register as a group. I think that was a mistake, having done a bunch of these transactions. The board instituted what's called a poison pill. A poison pill was something that was declared legal in the 1980s in response to the corporate raiders of the day. They made a movie about it with James Gardner, Wolf at the Door or Wolf at the Gate or something like that. I can't remember. The big oil baron down in Texas was the guy that was first doing it. I can't remember his. I saw him speak one time. I don't even remember his name anymore. But anyway, all right. So poison pill is where the board says if anybody buys more than 10% of our shares, which you can't stop them from doing, right? They can go into your market and they can buy as many as they want. But if anybody buys more than 10% of our shares, we're going to issue all the rest of the shareholders 5 additional shares for each share that they already have, and are not going to issue this purchaser the additional 5 shares, thus diluting his position from 10% back to 4%. See? And it's called a poison pill. It's only done historically by very, very weak management teams. It's considered a concession of poor organization and poor management, just doing anything they legally and possibly can to hold on to their positions. But that's what Twitter did unanimously. And that's what a poison pill is. And I guess, in my confusion, we'll just look at the markets, shall we? If you can put up graph number 4, please. And this is just where we are. This is our standard little graph, September 30th, 2021 through Monday, June 30th, 2022. And you can see the prior channel that the Fed was pushing it up in. We only hit it for a little bit back in November, and then it's been up and down ever since. They tried to hold a new channel below that, but that crapped out with the last interim high on January 3rd, 2022. Then it's been down, and then we had the interim low on March 8th, 2022 of 41.71, and then we had the high. See, where the stocks recovered. I kept saying there was going to be a rally. But anyway, that's a 5.2% upward move in between March 8th and March 8th and March 29th. So for the month of March, it was up 5.2%, call it. Ukraine rally. Things are not going well in Ukraine. Ukraine's dropped out of the news. In our side, they have to figure out something to say. The new field commander that the Russians appointed ain't playing any games. He's using the men and equipment without regard to negotiations. And right now, as we speak, he's attacking a city by the name of Donbass in rigorous fashion, shall we say. You can take that down. But anyway, that'll eventually, there'll be no way to hide it as we go forward. So, but anyway, the only thing I would say about that graph is we have 3 years of this left, unless there's a usurper, with the Biden administration. And the Republicans will probably win control of Congress, but they're no better. Chuck Grassley been in office for 50 years, Mitch McConnell for 40, Dianne Feinstein for 42. They're no better. They'll do some popular things like, make it harder for bureaucrats to interfere with your life and stuff like that, but no material changes in policy. And, it's earnings season. And a number of the corporations, when they come out and do their earnings, have to talk about what's going to happen next quarter and the other quarter. And I just can't reiterate how strongly enough I would not own this market. I really wouldn't. If you think that that's going to drop 5-10% and, you'll be okay, you'll be waiting a while. I think it would be better to go to cash. I keep saying this. I've been saying this since December. I said, sit out, but anyway, I just don't see it. We have no leadership. We have no usurpers, anybody straighten things out. We got nothing, and it's Western worldwide. and the Russians put a field commander in there. So I don't know. I don't see it. I think we go. There's a high probability that we go into recession in the third quarter. I listened to a guy. He's a retired, well-known. He worked on the buy side, and in financial language, the buy side is where you go and sell people things. And then he went over to the sell side, which is for the banks to buy these things. And he's well-known, highly paid, wealthy. Had his position in his career at BlackRock, which is the largest institutional money manager there is. And he didn't make a big deal of it. But he said that I want you to know that this exists and it's concern. And I think I'll repeat it. I'm going to add a little color. Back in the mid-19th century, so 1850, it was clear. The problem that we've been dealing with, by the way, for the last 3,000 years is imperial succession. How do you pick a new successor to the throne? All right, and it's just caused huge problems all the way throughout history. The imperial system kept creating civil wars, so they went to the monarchy system. By the mid-19th century, it was clear that the monarchical system, the monarchy systems were going to fail, and that's when you had Locke and Hume and Marx and Adam Smith and all the rest of these guys working on what types of government could possibly replace monarchy, because it was clear that they were going to fail. Then you had the French Revolution. Well, you had the American Revolution, then the French Revolution. American Civil War was important. All the rest of this stuff. Napoleonic Wars, obviously, were very important. And, our constitutional system has been doing a good job through thick and through thin at settling this succession problem for 250 years. But none of these politicians that have been in there so long are following the Constitution anymore. They grant themselves these extraordinary emergency powers. Yeah. They could care less, and they need to go. But, the population's not ready for it. So, I think we have trouble. But they came up with three systems, the philosophers back in the mid-19th century. And, three authoritarian systems. Okay. There were all manners of different systems that could replace monarchy, and they debated the merits of all of them. But there were three, what they referred to as authoritarian systems: fascism, communism, and capitalism, are the three authoritarian systems. The only substantial difference in between the systems is who's in charge. In a fascist regime, it is a charismatic single-man rule who normally combines with industry as his cabinet in the a la Mussolini in the modern interpretation of the phrase. Communism, it's the party. The members of the Politburo in the Russian states or the, I don't remember what the Chinese call theirs, but a limited group of people that are through a communist system. And in a capitalist system, it's the people with the money control, the system. And that's just the way it is. They're the three authoritarian systems. And a capitalist system, for all its virtue and free enterprise and this, that, and releasing the spirit of the entrepreneur and all that other horse shit, excuse my language, it's a strictly authoritarian system, and the people that control it are the people with the money. All right. Relatively consecutively, with notable exceptions in the middle of the 14th century, lasting till the beginning of the 15th century. For 3,000 years, call it. The system has been based on extracting wealth, the capitalists, from the labor and efforts of the, they go by different names, proletariat, serfs, peasants, whatever. But, for 2,500 years, the system has been based on extracting your wealth from the people below you in the capitalist system. And this guy points out that the ethic amongst all these high-placed, soulless bankers and stuff is that the math is flipped with the large populations, the age distribution, and what you promise them in retirement and healthcare and feeding and all the rest of this, that on a strictly mathematical basis, it now makes more sense, more profit to the capitalists to kill them than to try and use them to extract their labor. And he doesn't propose any conspiracy theories. He just wants you to know that these people that, these heartless, soulless capitalists, or capitalists, as someone called them, have that in their mind. So when you're running your medical system, you get somebody old, and it shows up in this warp speed bill. If you died of coronavirus, if they got you on a ventilator, okay, they got a $38,000 bonus for getting you on the ventilator if you died on the ventilator, And when you have the math like that, these people who are self-centered, narcissistic, unfeeling at every level, nursing staff at care homes, administrators in hospitals, bureaucrats, guys that just work with their desk and they're faced with this incentive. It's not really even organized. It just kind of grows systemically from a corrupt system, and it's more profitable at this point on large segments of the population to let them expire than to honor what you would refer to as the unfunded liability that we've promised them. And he just thinks that's important, and I do too. And I don't see how these stocks are going to recover before 2023. I really don't. Maybe after an election you'll get a big bump, but if you're holding these things in between now and then, so be it. But I would not. Anyway, for the week ended last week, the markets were, and this is just Monday to Friday, Monday to Thursday of last week. Speaking of which, Holy Day, or Holy Week, Palm Sunday. But I did not know, one thing I did learn through the Wall Street Journal in the editorial section, in 1865, the surrender at Appomattox was right in the middle of Holy Week, negotiated in between Grant and Lee on a Thursday. Because of the matter of distance back in those days, the terms of the surrender were not presented to Lincoln until Friday, the 14th of April, 1865. And he said that the terms of the surrender were in accordance with his wishes. He was shot that evening. Good Friday, April. But anyway, he approved the surrender in the morning, was shot that evening, died the following day. And I did not realize that series of events was that tightly compressed in time. But anyway, back to the week. For the markets last week fell 96.7 points, and that means you should have lost $2,130 on a $100,000 portfolio. The largest 30 stocks, capitalization weighted, lost $2,520. So instead of $2,130, so they fell even more. The top 30 stocks by equal weight lost even more than that, $2,700 instead of only $2,130. And the top three stocks from every sector, so a more diversified portfolio, only lost $1,890 instead of $2,132. So slightly better performed the index. We track 54 stocks, as it turns out. 41 were down, 13 were up, is all. Stocks that were up, Nike, didn't see anything. I don't know why. Boeing Aircraft, just because the stock got slaughtered on, it's a trading bounce, basically. Volatility in that one is huge. Microsoft recovered 13.7%. They announced a merger or an acquisition with somebody. Stock fell something like 20% or 19%. So that's just a trading bump. Honeywell didn't see it, probably some kind of lavish government contract, 2.7% up. Then there were only 9 other stocks that were up at all. And what do you have in there? Coca-Cola, Philip Morris, Target. So consumer discretionary, call it. MasterCard, clearing company, gain, and these are small gains, 1.4%. ExxonMobil up 1.2%. Philip Morris was up 1.7%. That was a pretty good gain. Verizon Communications up 0.6%. Comcast up 0.4%. And then it's all negative from there. Stocks that lost in between 0% and 2% included Walmart, the railroads, Southern Energy, Procter & Gamble, Disney, Johnson & Johnson, UPS, Costco, 3M Corporation, ConocoPhillips, a real estate concern, Amazon and Verizon. Stocks that lost more than 2% but less than 3%, United Health, Home Depot, Broadcom, Berkshire Hathaways, Lowe's, the other real estate concern, Apple, and Intel. Apple was down 2.8% and Intel was down 2.9%. 9 stocks that fell more than 3% but less than 5%. And that would be your other real estate concerns, Pfizer, NextEra Energy, Tesla fell 4%, call it. Sherwin-Williams fell 4.2%. Where are they going to get the base chemicals? It looks good for a while. It looks bad. They try and buy them. They can't, etc. So... but they were down 4.1%. Netflix down 4.1% subscriber growth. Abbott Laboratories down 4.5%. Google down 4.9%. 7 stocks down more than 5 but less than 8. And that would be Bank America down 5.3, bad earnings. Facebook 5.4, sucking pond water with their Meta thing. Lost a lot of price. It's now $220. Well, what is it? $210. It closed last week. That's down from like $350 a couple of months ago. Cisco down 5.7%. What is it? PayPal down 8%. Just poor management. Nothing you can do over there until you get rid of the board of directors and the officers. Nvidia, just because it's way overpriced, down 8%. And then AT&T down 19.1%. AT&T. They cut the dividend in half, without, pre-announcing it or doing anything else. You have a stock with no growth prospects, but tremendous cash flow. The only thing that people are holding them for is a dividend. And this board of directors, and these officers at this company decide to cut the dividend in half. And so that cleaved their stock price a full 20%. It ain't coming back. Now that the dividends, and I'm just saying you get caught in, I don't see it. I would not own stocks until close to election time. But that's just me. This has been the Bogdanich Perspective, April 19th. I wouldn't go into bonds either because they're going to raise interest rates on bonds, and the relationship in between the price of the bond and the interest rate is inverted. Interest rates go up, price of the bond goes down. So you're just going to have to sit in cash and take your lumps, in my opinion. But anyway, this has been the Bogdanich Perspective, April 19th. Who is our sponsor? Office Furniture Direct, ofdpdx.com. And thank you for joining, and hopefully see you next week on Tuesday, always Tuesday. And do Virginia, it means goodbye.
Portland's most respected and lowest priced office furniture dealer.
Office Furniture Direct.